People in Russia are noticing how Vladimir Putin has misjudged his invasion of Ukraine, a UK intelligence chief will say on Tuesday. Jeremy Fleming, director of the British GCHQ intelligence agency, is to say he believed the mobilization, which has caused an exodus of hundreds of thousands, was part of a picture of the Russian president's flawed decision-making. In a lecture to the London think tank, the Royal United Services Institute, which has been provided to the media, Fleming is to say on Tuesday that Putin's botched draft of 300,000 reservists speaks of a desperate situation. Russians can now see just how badly Putin has misjudged the situation, according to Fleming. They are fleeing the draft, realizing they can no longer travel. They know their access to modern technologies and external influences will be drastically restricted, Fleming will say, according to the BBC. Russian commanders on the ground know that their supplies and munitions are running out. With little effective internal challenge, his decision-making has proved flawed, he will say, adding that Russian forces are exhausted, and that the cost to Russia in both troops and equipment has been staggering. This high-stakes strategy is leading to strategic errors in judgment, he will add. Fleming also told the Today program on BBC's Radio 4 it was pretty clear Russia and Russia's commanders are worried about the state of their military machine, and the word I've used is desperate. Ben Hodges, former commanding general of the United States Army Europe, said that he agreed that Russia faced problems with its supplies of ammunition. We know that due to the sanctions the Russians are unable to replenish their precision munitions, he told the media. These depend on imported components. On Monday, Russia launched its biggest aerial assaults on Ukrainian cities since the beginning of the war, with emergency services saying that at least 19 people were killed and 105 wounded. Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, General Valery Zaluzhny, said that Ukraine intercepted 41 of 75 missiles launched. Hodges said that it was interesting that the Ukrainians are able to shoot down so many of these Russian missiles. Ukrainians are very good at air missile defense with what they have. They just need a lot more to protect innocent civilians from deliberate targeting by Russia, he added. On Monday, President Joe Biden pledged continued U.S. security assistance during a call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, including advanced air defense systems. It comes as the British Ministry of Defense, MOD, said that the appointment of General Sergei Surovikin as overall commander of Russia's joint group of force likely reflects an effort by the Russian national security community to improve the delivery of the operation. Surovikin had previously commanded the Russian aerospace forces and the southern grouping of forces on operations in Ukraine. British defense officials said on Tuesday that he will likely have to contest with an increasingly factional Russian Ministry of Defense, which is poorly resourced to achieve the political objectives it has been set in Ukraine. Russia experienced a number of embarrassing setbacks on the battlefield in Ukraine, but none of them were as humiliating as an explosion that rocked the Crimean Bridge, also known as Kerch Strait Bridge or Kerch Bridge, early Saturday morning. During his Saturday broadcast on Solovyov Live, Russian state TV host Sergei Mardan opened his show with heavy sighs. He noted, "All day long we'll be talking about how this happened and what will come of it. I can tell you right now that nothing good will come of it, that's for sure." Mardan grimly concluded, "They've achieved an enormous propagandistic effect." Repeatedly referring to Ukrainians with an often used slur, Mardan complained that Russia apparently underestimated not only them, but also the Americans. Chauvinistic disregard for the Ukrainians as Russia's lesser opponents manifests in the way Russian propagandists tend to blame the West for any painful blows inflicted in the course of Russia's ill-fated invasion. Mardan noted, there was no shock that they would try to attack the Crimean Bridge, but there was an initial shock that they managed to pull it off, especially in the early morning hours. He explained that, as usual, the West is to blame. Many competent people explained that this was a complicated task, not just journalists or commentators, but specialists. There is a high level of certainty that an operation of this magnitude could have been staged only by Western intelligence agencies. Mardan urged the Russians to stop underestimating the Ukrainian armed forces, bristling even at the comparisons to ISIS. He asserted, comparing Ukraine to ISIS is insulting to the Russian army, which has been fighting them on an enormous front for 7 months. ISIS are tribespeople in sandals made out of tires. They have no cities, power plants, railways, or factories. Ukraine has it all. Ukraine is a cruel, motivated, well-prepared enemy. This is an enemy nation that has been waging a full-fledged war against us for at least 7.5 months. We keep calling it a special military operation, but they are waging war. Good Lord, I can't keep listening to this thick and sticky rhetoric. It's time to stop talking about the peace process and the collective West. This rhetoric doesn't look good, in fact, it's harmful. Since the mobilization has been announced, we're talking about war, a people's war. Mardan predicted an escalation, quoted Vladimir Lenin, and urged a harsh response. We stand on the precipice of another escalation. It's unavoidable. A war should be waged for real or not at all. Now we don't have any other options. No one will allow us to retreat, even though some would like that, and actually want that to happen. We should have no illusions about that. He somberly revisited fantasies harbored by many Russians in the very beginning of the invasion, stoked by top propagandists on state television, who predicted that a war against Ukraine would be fast, pain-free and nearly bloodless. That dream rapidly evaporated and reality hit hard, affecting even the staunch supporters of Putin's war. Mardan reminisced, during the first week, we had a naive expectation of another Crimean miracle, like it happened in 2014. There we were, at Kiev's door, having solved all problems. That hope was gone 1 to 2 weeks later. Mardan grumbled about the problems Russia continues to have with supplying its existing forces, especially in light of the recently announced partial mobilization. He outlined the well-known shortages of uniforms, drones and basic gear, which have been replenished through donations and crowdfunding. The host noted that at this point, every grandma in Russia knows what a quadcopter is, having had to contribute funds to supply the army. Now the citizens are being prepared to skip New Year's celebrations, to do without Christmas trees or fancy lights adorning city centers, with that money to be sent to the front, securing winter uniforms for the troops. Mardan sternly noted, this is no time to celebrate. He also revealed that not everyone is as receptive to the idea of an indefinite war against Ukraine as Russian public polls alleged. Behind the scenes, many are anxious for the armed conflict to be over. In light of this rapidly growing trend, state TV propagandists have been tasked with convincing the public that unless Russia wins, its citizens would be locked in concentration camps, enslaved by the West or killed. Mardan said, after the mobilization, I noticed the growth of pacifist inclinations in my circles, among the people of my generation or older. Very cautiously, they are starting to come out and say how nice it would be if everything came to an end, since we're not pulling through. Thanks for watching Warzone. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. We'd recommend you watch this video next.